And we are live. I am very excited for this one. We are going to be chatting with a couple of the guys from Cyberzoic today. And when I say we are, I mean myself and Brick, who, if you've ever watched the channel, you probably know pretty well. We do quite a few videos together. I've kind of lost my voice, but we're gonna power through. Brick's been sick for like a week.
I'm actually audible now, and yes, last night I sounded like really like low Barry White, but today it's kind of approaching normal. So fingers crossed.
That's how I feel too. I got my my steaming hot cup of water with lemon and honey.
Got it. Ginger tea over here.
Ginger, that would work too. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I'm really excited about this. The reason that Brick's on here with me is because he baited me into Cyberzoic and was like, I'm all in on Cyberzoic. I'm gonna buy everything. You should check it out. We should talk about it. And I was like, all right, cool. And I did, and I was like, well, I'm not really a 1/18th guy, and dinos. I mean, I like dinos. I love Dino Riders. I like Jurassic Park. But I don't know half these species of dinosaurs. And then I kept looking at the page. I kept looking at the Kickstarter. I kept looking at the concept art. And then what really killed me, what put me over the edge, Brick, you know this, when David Silva posted the sort of lore with like the different plans, I was like, now I'm in. I'm a sucker for sort of the dynamics and sort of the politics and all that kind of stuff. So when it was just the toys, I was like, I mean, they're cool. I mean, we'll see. But as soon as I saw that, and I was like, wait, the Fire Clan are the good guys? This doesn't make any sense. Like, so I need to get in on it. Got in on the Kickstarter, went pretty hard on the backer kit too. But the way I look at it, you know, I've got my Cyberzoic figures for the next, year and a half or 2 years planned out. But that being said, I feel like now I need to buy some dinosaurs in the meantime, sort of infill some Beasts of the Mesozoic stuff. So we'll see how that works out.
I got to. You already have. If you've been following his channel, he already unboxed one this past week. He started. He's well on the path. So
I got an Avaceratops, and I did indeed do an unboxing video for that one. I'd never heard of an Avaceratops before Creative Beast Studios Beasts of the Mesozoic enlightened me. All dinosaurs that look like that were Triceratops to me. And so now
you learned that there was a whole category called ceratopsians.
I know that there are now ceratopsians. And during that live stream, I also learned that Pachycephalosaurus is, contrary to the conversation, a specific species of dinosaur, but it is of the Pachycephalosophidae grouping.
Yeah, I don't know if it's
which includes a Stygimoloch as well. Somebody was like, "Oh, I love Stygimoloch," and I was like, "I like Pachycephalosaurus," and he was like, "That's the overall," and I was like, "I don't know enough about dinosaurs to disagree with that." So I did my research, and I was right, but he was kind of also right too, and I can't remember who that was, but anyway, it was. I'm my education in dinosaur species basically started. I thought I knew quite a bit.
Well, that's the thing. I'm laughing at you, kinda. Because yes, if you know, no, not that. But if you know, Creative Beast Studios, they are known for Beasts of the Mesozoic. Yeah, and so it's very like based on current science and our understandings of these prehistoric creatures.
Yes.
And so they really strive to like really even like get, yes, dinosaurs with feathers, folks, but just even the coloring is often based on, trying to base it on real world birds that we know of today.
Yeah.
To kind of make the avian connection. But what I'm laughing at you about is like, I'm doing my research. but it's because I'm getting into a line called Cyberzoic that has dragons. But yeah, that's cool.
Yes.
You just got to embrace the fantasy.
I'm educating myself on dinosaurs so that I can buy action figures. Yeah,
action figures with dragons.
Who knew that this is what I would be doing in my 40s? But anyway.
Hey, let me real quick
apologize.
Can I just apologize to you? I didn't mean to bait and switch you. I was just in a different financial place in my head when I saw that Kickstarter come, and I was like, yes, I'm going to get this. And I had to make some calls. But, you know, as of now, I'm just in for the Arctic Dragon, which I've basically been lusting for like 2 years. So
yeah, and I knew that, and that's I think it's probably one of those things where I know you well enough that that budget will come around. You probably end up with most of this stuff in the long term anyway. It just didn't work to back it during the Kickstarter. Anyway, we've got our guests waiting. Before we check in with them, I'm just going to check in with the chat, say hello. Ray Paz is hanging out. Sorry, my voice.
Oh, good.
If I talk slowly and quietly, I'm fine.
And I apologize for the sniffles.
I never talk like that.
Yeah.
I never speak like this. My kids are running around today, and I'm like, George, can you just relax, please? It just doesn't. It's not how I operate at all. Star is here as well. House Hendo. This feels super weird because it's not how I talk.
If you need help, I can help.
Thanos Copter has joined us. House Hendo, I'm going to come back to this one. He says, I've been considering Joy Toy for over a year for the 1/18th plunge. The Cyberzoic launched. I was like, now I have to set up 1/18th shelf.
Yep.
I was the exact same way with Joy Toy. And lo and behold, there they are. Let's see. Drew Chase is hanging out. And a $2 super chat. Thank you, Drew. What's going on, man? Thank you for the super chat. Hopefully this is entertaining enough and decent value for your money. Let's see. Paints Toy Samples is here as well. We were on a stream with him last night as well. Star says, why apologize for turning someone on to something awesome?
What I meant to say is you're welcome. You're welcome.
Yes. Exactly. House Hendo says, I just grab the exclusive for now till I can throw more at the backer kit. Yeah, exactly. That was the same for me. It wasn't something that I knew I wanted during the Kickstarter period, so I was like, well, I'll back for like one thing and then we'll kind of see. And then in the meantime, some things fell into place, and so I was able to grab way too much stuff. Anyways, that's me pretty much caught up with the chat. Let's bring on our guests from Creative Beast Studios and Cyberzoic. We have Ross Persichetti.
Close enough, Persichetti.
And
Ross Persichetti.
Who knows for a fact that no one can pronounce Ross's last name correctly.
I just call him Russ Spaghetti.
How are you guys doing? Happy Sunday to you guys. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. We're doing great.
Yep,
no, you're not.
Yeah. Doing well. Ready to cause some chaos in this little stream. Get you guys excited.
Absolutely. Let's do it. Ross, we know that you're like us. 3 out of 4 of us probably shouldn't be doing this. But we got Chris, so he'll ramp the energy up for all of us. It'll be fine.
Absolutely. And then when Chris does something he's not supposed to, I'll reel him back in.
I got secrets. I got lots of secrets.
When I see in your face that he's going too far, I'll just pull Ross off the screen and let Chris go.
Chris has left the chat. I'll be back with vengeance.
But before we get into the Cyberzoic stuff, before we get into spoiler territory, let's get a little bit of backstory from you guys. So, first question, how did you guys get into sculpting? Like, why are we talking to you, right? Where does it sort of start from? Ross, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I graduated last year from Savannah College of Art and Design, and my degree was actually in illustration. And during my junior year, I found out that SCAD had an action figure minor, and I was like, oh man, that's awesome! I'm absolutely going to do that, and it required me to take some sculpting classes, so I did. And because of that sculpting class, my professor hooked me up with Hasbro, and I did a year tip position with them right outside of school. And then after that, well, actually right before that, I started working with Dave work and now sculpting for him too. So that's sort of how I found my way into sculpting professionally for action figures.
Now, just a quick sort of question for me, mainly because I'm fascinated by this stuff. There was a minor in action figure design. Like how many people would take that program? And how many programs like that are there?
Not very many at all, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So when classes are built at SCAD, you have to have a minimum number of students for it to happen, because otherwise it doesn't make enough economic sense. Pay a professor for that full amount of time to teach 2 students, and only 2 students paying tuition. So there were times that, like, for certain classes, there's so many students, it's only offered, 1 semester only, either spring or fall, and there's been several times where there hasn't been enough students and they were just not going to teach the class, and the professor had to fight to get that class done. Otherwise, these people would graduate without finishing the minor.
Yep.
So it's a very small number of people.
Yeah, private art school. So, what do you guys want to take? What are you going to pay for?
Yeah, exactly.
No, sorry. Full disclosure, I'm a public high school teacher who have sent a bunch of kids to art school, and I have friends who actually graduated from there and loved it, loved Savannah. So good programs, but it is kind of cool. Like it, and what from my understanding is it, like you said, it may exist or may not, depending on how many people are interested. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. I don't know of a year that it didn't exist. The professor that kind of pushes the program really hard. He's definitely fought for it to stay around.
That's awesome.
And I think it's also like gaining relevance now that there's a relationship with Hasbro and SCAD.
That's cool.
So
yeah,
that's great.
Chris, how about yourself?
Man, I have a crazy story on that, and we'll kind of make it quicker. So I don't want to take 4 hours of your guys' time, but I got into it because I was trying to rehabilitate my right hand. And so I started with Sculpt Day, Super Sculpt Day, and just started sculpting for fun. I owned a gym at the time. And so I was like, I need to rehabilitate my hand, make it so I can use it and function. So started it that way, kind of just watched YouTube videos. And I'd say about 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, I decided to try out ZBrush, because when you sculpt with clay or any regular traditional medium, it takes forever to get symmetry done, right? So I was like, I'm lazy. I have so much energy. I can't sit still for more than 20 minutes. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to get ZBrush and try it out. So I started teaching myself that about 4 or 5 years ago and got into that way. So originally I was doing like high detailed statues of dragons and monsters, and basically came around and wanted to do action figures the whole time. My whole goal was to make action figures for myself, like just for personal use, because I love things. And you can't get stuff that you want. And it's so hard to find something that I really enjoy. So I took my love for what I wanted and started creating my own stuff, and then just went from there.
Now, let's back up a little bit. How does somebody that owns a gym become an action figure sculptor? There feels like there's a piece missing in that puzzle.
Man, it was one of those weird things. So I hate sports. I played college football. I did all that. Absolutely hate it. I love the competition side, right? I love working out, love being strong. I love showing off to Dave and Ross because they're little weak guys. But that's one of my favorite things. I just love the physical stuff. But then my whole passion has always been art. Like when I was in high school and everything else, I always wanted to draw on that. But I was one of those kids that was an athlete. So everybody always told me, oh, don't do art. It's going to be a waste of your time. Don't do this or do that. And funny enough, went to school, spent, $100,000+ in college just to not use my degree once and making toys. So
yeah, you're right back where you shouldn't have been, right? According to those people.
Can I actually back up also? So Ross, you're saying like you heard there was an action figure minor, you're like, I want to do that. And Chris, you're like, okay, I want to make toys for myself. So like what toys were you into? Just a little bit of background. Like what toys were you playing with either as a kid or later that kind of drew you to these things?
Ross, you want to go first?
Sure. I've talked about this a bit before, but I think we all go through that period in life where like we love toys as a kid, and then at some point around middle school, high school, we're like, we need to grow up. So we either get rid of it all or we box it all away and forget about it. And then we come to a certain age. For me, it hit around middle of college. I was like, what the heck am I doing? Like, I love toys. So I just brought them all back out again and started buying more stuff. And that's sort of, how I got back into things. But for me, it's all about like Godzilla, anything kaiju, Transformers, and really the Power Rangers.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Oh. And then for me, it was kind of the same thing. I always collected, like I have this whole studio full of all the toys I've collected for the years. And it's the same thing as like Ross said, I put everything away because I always had this mentality where you can't show this stuff off. It's not cool to show this stuff off. And I'm like, I can do whatever I want, right? I'm an adult. But I always started collecting with like Digimon transforming toys, the Digivolving toys. Oh man, they were my favorite. And then I had the little Gashapon, Zukon, Pokemon. So I always liked like the monster type of figures. Wasn't so big in action figures unless it was a Transformer or something like that. Love anything that can. I love toys that are like 2-in-1s. They're a lot of fun.
Right.
And so I have all these toys. I have all the SH monster arts of all the Monster Hunters, a bunch of other creatures from them, a bunch of Dragon Ball Z. So yeah, it just kind of went that way. But it was one of those things where I think it was. Let me actually look. Yeah, I think it was a bunch of my Star Wars figures that I was like, these are so cool. I want to put these on display, but I didn't want anybody to know that I had these Star Wars toys at like 25 years old. I couldn't invite a girl over and see this. And I was wrong.
Yeah.
So you guys are like perfectly suited for Cyberzoic then.
I was going to say, yeah.
It's like beasts, it's monsters to some extent,
Weirdly,
right? It's scientifically accurate. You do get the dragons as well.
Yeah, I heard Transformers creatures. I heard 2-in-1 toys. I was
the
like,
armor,
perfect.
the transforming armors and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so you guys, so then I guess the next logical question, and you guys kind of segued into this without us even having to do like a hard segue. How did you guys get linked up with David to do Cyberzoic?
This is my head nod for Ross.
Chris, yours started off a little bit earlier, but happened later. So why don't you start?
Perfect. So I saw David doing the Raptors, and I've always so in my head, it's kind of like this for Ross too. David's this huge figure. He's done everything I've ever wanted to do. He's worked on all these action figures. And so I saw him working on these Raptors. Like, man, this guy is like one of those like surreal people that you don't ever think you'll talk to, but you think is really cool. So I sent a message like, hey, you're doing exactly what I want to do. How do I do this? Never heard from him. This was like 3 years ago. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to get really good at my skill. I'm just going to message this guy periodically so that he responds to me, right? So I worked, and that was like one of the driving factors, worked my skill, this and that. And I sent him a message about 6 months ago, back in June, I believe. And it was basically on the same lines. I was like, hey, I absolutely love what you do. How and what can I do to be able to work with you and learn this trade? With a few other things in there. And he responded, he was like, hey, if you have time, I have time to do a call with you. Would you like to do a call? So we did. I was so nervous talking to this dude. And he was like, I'm just a normal guy, man. Just talk to me like a normal guy. I'm like, okay, yes, sir. And we started talking. Coolest dude in the world, most down-to-earth dude in the world. And it's been the coolest experience ever to work on these things. Not only that, but my skill compared to Ross and David is so much lower. I wouldn't say lower. It's just not at that level they're at. They're amazing artists, incredible artists and sculptors. And so every day is like going to work with like one of your heroes, even with Ross, like he'll help me. He just helped me today for like 3 hours. And he's like, okay, you need to do this, this, or this. And David, the same thing. So my skill in the last 6 months went from, being a mediocre artist to like the next tier. And so it's really cool to work with these guys. So yeah, I guess I kind of went in a little bit more detail for you guys, but yeah, that's how I got into it.
That's great. That's cool.
Well, thanks for the compliments there, Chris. And in my case, at the time I was a junior, about to go into senior year of college, and I had been working really hard, working on my portfolio, drawing, painting, all this stuff. And at that time, I wasn't sculpting yet, and I was like, I need to find an internship. So what I did is I just went on LinkedIn. And I found any SCAD graduates working in the toy industry and just found their name and messaged them and be like, hey, is there anything available at your company? Blah, blah, blah. I'm a fellow SCAD, I'm a SCAD student. I noticed you were a SCAD graduate, that kind of thing. And out of all the ones I messaged, only 2 of them got back with me. And the first one was Dave. And I was actually, at the time, he was still working with NECA. And I was like, hey, does NECA have any internship opportunities? Because I wasn't familiar with Creative Beast at the time. And he was like, NECA probably can't use you, but I can. So we scheduled a call, and that sort of started like it's an internship doing design work for Cyberzoic, and that's when kind of Cyberzoic, the ball started rolling on that, because Dave's had this idea for decades, really.
Yeah.
But the ball didn't really start rolling until that moment, and I didn't realize at the time. I was like, oh, I'm just drawing and having some fun and making a little bit of money, and now I'm looking at it, what it's become. But yeah, since then, picked up sculpting. Now I'm sculpting and done some package art too, and so yeah, that's
awesome.
Sort of how that started.
So you do a little bit of everything too, then, hey? Like as far as the line goes.
Yeah,
I mean the poster. That poster is your art in the background.
Yeah, I noticed that in your background, and I like the cool frame that you got. When I first did that, it was supposed to be like a one-off cool poster kind of thing. I didn't plan on doing more prints afterwards, so I sort of regret the weird sizing.
It's terrible. It's terrible. You can't get a stock frame for it.
Always got a plan for the end frame. Yeah.
Yeah. Ever since then, all my prints are 11 by 17.
Yeah.
Which is a very easy size to get.
Yeah, that first one is, I don't even know if it's a specific size, but I know it's difficult to be framed.
It's 10 by 18.
It's so bad. We were
They didn't cover that at SCAD, huh?
It looks great, but it's a terrible size. And because there's like writing down at the bottom, like you can't really see it, but there's it's it says Cyberzoic, summer 2022 down at the bottom. So you can't trim the edges and like fit it in. Because you'll be cutting that part, and then you'd have to cut the other part, and then it just changes the whole thing anyway.
That's what a mat's for. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm curious though,
too big and put it in
just
there.
to sort of break it down, because you guys kind of alluded to like, different skill levels, different backgrounds. Like, how do you divide up the work between you guys and David for this line?
You want me to go?
How's the work divided?
Dave is sort of like head guy, and he sort of delegates and gives us the projects he wants us to work on. I don't know. Do you have any more to add to that, Chris?
Oh yeah. So I would think of it kind of like a pyramid where you have David at the top, the Ross, then me. So like I'm getting all the social stuff ready, trying to help David take over that. So we're about to actually release our YouTube video for you guys. So that'll be Wednesday. Get excited for that. But we're trying to create all this new content for everybody, because we've realized, David's actually realized how everybody is really fanning for all the lore and everything else. So he's bringing us all in at different points to do certain things. So Ross does a lot of the concept. He's an amazing drawer. You draw well. He's an amazing artist, does a lot of stuff. And then also we both are sculpting. And we have all these other artists that David has reached out to do things. Perfect example, that Cyberzoic movie poster that you guys saw for the Kickstarter. So all these incredible artists are always working on stuff. And then Dave basically has to mastermind everything. And it's insane to see his workload. I think one of the crazy experiences I had through this whole endeavor with David is watching him work through the Kickstarter, because I knew it was going to be hard. I didn't know how much. And man, he was going 190 miles an hour the entire time. There were times where I was stressed out. I was doing 1/5 what he was doing. And I even made the comment to Ross. I was like, man, I've never worked this much in my life. And it's like, Ross is like, yeah, it's pretty stressful. And then David's doing all this crazy stuff. But it's insane. So he's at the top, then it branches down, and then you have Ross, I would say, right underneath David for everything. And then you have all this other artists that are kind of built around that, and we go to David or to Ross just trying to figure out what needs to be done and then go from there. So it's kind of like a mesh pool of all these talents and abilities, and then David has this crazy ability to know what people are good at and where they fit, and making the pieces fit perfectly, and it functions, because I am the chaotic part of all this, and he's has me working on stuff continuously, so it's great.
So David's playing kind of a role as like not only the business end, but kind of the creative director and project manager for everything, or is there a different project person who's kind of?
No, that I would say you hit the nail on the head. And then I would, it's insane. And this, it's crazy. And I don't want to sound like I'm brown nosing or talking too good about him. He's not that great of a guy. No, I'm just kidding. But you actually, when you start seeing all the stuff he's doing, because you guys talk to us, a perfect example, like we're able to do these interviews and stuff. David's still working on other things.
Right. Yeah.
So it's insane. And I don't think people realize the workload this guy has, and the drive and the talent to do all these different things. It blows me away. We were over there at his studio back in November this month. Was it this month, Ross? Feels like so long ago. Last month, was it? It was December. Okay, this is December. Okay, it was November. Yeah. Got a little chaotic here. And we were so blown away by everything he's doing. But one of the craziest things he had all of the prototype setup and everything ready to go, and everything was done. And he did that himself. Like, of course, we did some of the painting and this and that, but while he was getting all of the updates ready, the Kickstarter going, everything, he was still working on the figures and doing all this other stuff. So yeah, he wears a lot of hats, and he's still able to do everything he's doing. So
I'm sorry to keep it in a but just to tie it together. So do you guys work on Beasts of the Mesozoic too, or is that just so he's doing Cyberzoic while doing that stuff separately with a different group, or how does that all work?
So they kind of get entangled from time to time because like the dinosaurs are going to be shared across the line.
Right.
I know for me, I've done a couple Beast of Mesozoic things, indirectly and directly. The PowerCon exclusives, which was like the glow in the dark Protoceratops, Velociraptor, and stuff like that. I did the package art for the exclusive, so that's Beast of Mesozoic directly. And then indirectly, I sculpted the Deinonychus, and that will at some point be featured into Beast of Mesozoic in the new like colorway.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, we're definitely bouncing back and forth and between the two, and then there's also, we've been developing a third with Beast of Cenozoic, with all the prehistoric mammals.
Yep.
So, But Dave, we work with a lot of freelancers that handle sculpts and package art for across the board. So like, while the three of us make up the team, there's definitely a ton of other artists involved in, all the projects.
Cool.
Now you mentioned the crossover between Beasts of the Mesozoic and soon the third line is going to tie in there too with the Smilodon. I think probably being in that first wave just by default because it'll be ready to go sooner rather than later. Which of the current Beasts of the Mesozoic dinosaurs will get armor so that I can pre-buy more dinos now?
And how much compatibility is there with maybe others? Like when I'm looking at some of.
Let's see.
I think. Sorry to cut you
off. I'll phrase it.
I want to see if he gives me the answer that he gave me at Legion's Con.
Okay, go for it, Ross. It's all you, bro.
I'll phrase it like this because I know it's hard to remember which have been confirmations between publicly and with Dave and I. So I'll phrase it like this: there's concept art for and design work done for the Triceratops, which that's already in existence. Definitely a couple of like the Ceratopsians. Actually, there might be armor sets compatible for all, I think, 4 body types of the Ceratopsians, so it'll just differ by head. Trying to think. The exciting thing about Cyberzoic, honestly, is that we are using that platform to launch brand new dinosaurs. Because with Beast of Mesozoic, we were sticking with the species, like we did the Raptor series, the T-Rex series, Ceratopsian series, and now with Cyberzoic, we're not limited by those bounds anymore. Like Cyberzoic had the Allosaurus and Smilodon and a dragon in the same line with the Deinonychus and all that stuff. So I know a lot of what's planned for Cyberzoic 2 and 3 are definitely new species.
Like what?
Well, there's definitely a few that are going to be Beast of Mesozoic, so it will call back to that line. But I mean, Chris, you were going to say something.
So yeah, like I lost ADHD kicked and lost my train of thought. We've been talking about some of the dinosaurs. I know if you go to the updates, oh my gosh, my mic's going crazy. What's up, you guys? If you go to the updates, we're just like this. You can see it on the Kickstarter that the Dryptosaurus, I think it was, or the Utyrannus. Yeah, so they are backwards compatible already. So if you get one of those figures, I'm trying to talk to you guys while I figure out what my mic's doing. You already have armor sets that'll work from directly. And then we're trying to figure out ways for other armor sets to work. Like Ross was saying that he is going back and making sure they're backward compatible. So is Dave. Dave actually figured out during the Kickstarter that a few of them would be backward compatible already. Just depends on their heads. So yeah, if you guys haven't, go to the Kickstarter page and all those updates. I mean, you're gonna have to go through all of them. Maybe not. They'll tell you which ones are backward compatible.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a part of the question that I forgot to address. Yeah, like Chris was saying, Dave realized that the Achillibator armor set, which is the Razorhound, the transforming Razorhound unit, Dave was playing with that with the prototypes and found that it kind of worked with the Carnotaurus, which we did not plan for or expect. We'll definitely know more in terms of like odd pairings like that once we get things from the factory.
Yeah.
Just because right now the resin, the 3D prints, the prototypes, they're so brittle and rigid. Right. But once they're flexible plastic, injection molded plastic, we can really play with it, stretch it, and pop it onto other dinosaurs without fear of breaking our one and only prototype.
Right. Yeah. As far as the design process and the prototyping process and stuff like that, how much are you guys just kind of learning as you go, like in terms of what's going to work, what isn't? Has there been something that you were like, we should totally do this, and you tried it and you were like, this is not going to work, and vice versa? Has there been something where you were like, I don't know, this seems like it's never going to work, and you found that pleasantly it was super easy and it worked and everything fell into place?
So Ross, do you care if I go first?
Yeah, go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say.
Perfect example of that is today we're working on the Smilodon, and we're always making these things not perfect, but as great as they can be. And we now have figured out a way to make the armor shift. So can I talk about this, Ross? Okay, cool. So you guys want to hear a secret? No. And so now the armor, the back armor will actually shift with the body. So you get that articulation in it. So that's really cool. And so we're figuring on that. Nice. So Ross is going in and going to figure out the engineering for that, which is going to be super simple because David already talked about that with me. And I think it was something maybe he brought up to you too, Ross. So now we'll actually have it so you get the posability with the Smilodon, with the cool armor that comes with it.
That's great.
But it's also like I have the Pyrodactyl prototype back here. Let me grab it for you guys 1 sec.
Ooh.
Yeah, and that's like version 1.
As I break all the wings off. So I knocked the wings off just now, but you guys can see it. Yeah, so this is version 1, and the new one doesn't look like this at all. But it was interesting because one of the first things that Dave brought up to me was making sure that the armor. Let's see if it'll actually get on this.
Damn.
Oh, there we go. Making sure that the wings would actually function as armor on the Dilophosaurus. And so he brought it to me, and this concept was done by Ross. And he brought it to me, was like, hey, can you get this to work? And he was like, I don't even know if we can get it to work. And we were able to figure a way to engineer the wings to go over the chest of the Dilophosaurus so that it acts like a chest plate. It's super sick. You'd have to go to the Kickstarter to see pictures. We should have some pictures ready for you guys. But yeah, so there's all kinds of stuff that kind of just, I'm going to sit down here, that kind of, we're working on something and it'll just be an epiphany of ideas where we're just figuring things out as we go. But it always helps having the concepts. A lot of this stuff, Ross is a little brainiac over there. He'll come up with these armor sets and he'll make all these cool different reference pictures. And I'll just sit over there and like tinker with what's going on. But it is cool because some of them just flow perfectly. The other ones we have to figure out engineering, but I don't think we've had an idea yet, Ross, that has not worked.
Yeah. And I was going to tag along and say, everything's been a learning process. The idea of creating dinosaur armor that transforms into robot creatures, Chris absolutely knocked it out of the park with the Pyrodactyl because parts of my drawing didn't even make complete sense. Like I just drew it, it looked cool, and Dave sent it along, and Chris had to figure it out. And then, especially the tech plan, I feel like the tech plan is even more complicated with all the parts have to reconfigure in a new formation to make a vehicle and making parts line up and the tabbing and all that kind of stuff. But we've definitely all bashed our heads into the screen trying to figure it out, making sure everything will work. But I will say, now that I being one of the main designers for all the armor sets and everything, I've recognized the responsibility of drawing something that can work, because if it can't, well, then it's just going to cost more money because I didn't do it correctly, so I got to make sure to nail it at the start where someone can sculpt it, engineer it, and go on from there.
So that's my new favorite thing to do whenever I can't figure something. I'm like, Ross screwed up, Dave. I don't know what he's thinking. No.
Just a note on people asking questions in the chat. I'm gonna set the questions sort of aside for now. I will come back to them. So I have noted some of the questions that are in there. Justin and House Hendo I will ask your questions, but we'll sort of put that off because we may answer them sort of just in the flow of things anyway. So, where I lost my train of thought now too.
You're welcome.
Brick.
I mean, I honestly, I got distracted and I was like, how much is that pterodactyl going to cost? And I started looking at it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like, I think 49, right? I think we're at the 49 price range.
Yeah, no, I found it here. You kind of, did you find it?
I remember.
Go for it.
Yes.
Go.
So I kind of missed this at first, but I kind of heard you guys mention this or sort of read it a couple places. But can you just sort of clarify for me a little bit? The Fire Clan stuff transforms. It typically doesn't need to be reconfigured, and then the Tech Clan stuff is almost like modular, and then you kind of it'll all sort of port in. So is that accurate? Like most of the Fire Clan stuff, it's already the thing. It just has to have, the legs flipped out and the wings flipped out and stuff like that. Whereas the Tech Clan is, you'll have 8 pieces on your desk and you'll have to put them all back together to create. Oh, that's really, really cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then for the Fire Clan, there are 2 different armor sets. There's the deluxe armor sets, which are the transforming ones, and then there's the standard armor sets like the Dryptosaurus and Carnotaurus, which are traditional armor sets. They don't have any crazy transforming functions, just cool weapons and cool armor. But yeah, it's sort of like I like to think of the Tech Clan stuff like the Mark 42 Iron Man armor.
That's exactly what I thought of.
But yeah, that's correct.
During the process, is that sort of like how these things evolve? Like, does David say to you, or do you say to David, like, what if it was kind of like this, or was that the intention from the jump? Like, what was that? Because I know there was a little bit of change, I think, with the Desert Clan stuff that was initially gonna be something like those, but now it's just a modular thing that it doesn't, at least yet, have sort of like a kind of gimmick to it.
You want me to answer?
Yeah, you go for it, Chris.
So there's always changes being made, and that's one of the cool things with David is he's always up for ideas. So anytime we have an idea, we can just reach out and be like, hey, what about this? Perfect example. Let me grab a wing again, going back to the pterodactyl. So originally the wings were kind of like this, and we're going to have little boosters. Let's see if you can even see that. So there's little boosters on the wings. We're just going to have it kind of like, wait, there you go. So like right here and right here, little tiny boosters, like you can barely even see them. And we're going to work on that, of course. This wasn't the final design. There's also 2 right here, but it was going to be so that the jet flame would come out kind of like just like a booster rocket, right? And I was playing with it, and I love dragons. And one of the things that I really like is Megatron from Transformer, right? He had the cool dragon form with those energy wings. And so I started playing with that idea, and I started sculpting some energy wings, this and that. And I wasn't even going to show it to David because you got to remember, this is like the first project I worked on with him. I didn't want to bother him, this and that. He was always cool anytime I bothered him, but I was just a little timid, right? And I showed it to Ross actually, and Ross was like, have you showed this to David? I was like, no, man, I haven't showed it to David. He's like, you got to show this to David. I was like, okay, I'll show it to David. And David was like, yeah, that's cool. Let's try to go for that. So that's how that works. So if you go and look at the Kickstarter, you can actually see the energy wings.
Yeah.
And so that's how that came out. So yeah, like anytime there's ideas or something going on, it's so fun. Like we can hit off each other's heads. We can kind of figure out which direction to go in. But it's nothing's ever set in stone. Like perfect example, we're still making changes to the Smilodon armor. I'll go back and work on some stuff for the pterodactyl as well. But it's really a cool experience because if we have, like we were talking about earlier, we all like the same stuff: Transformers, monsters, kaijus, this and that. Godzilla, by the way, go see -1. It's awesome. And we can just throw out an idea to each other, and we'll be like, okay, this might work. And like the armors and stuff, it's one of those things where David and Ross love. Well, I think David loves Mortal Kombat more, but I'm gonna give away secrets. Can't talk more on that. Anyways, there's a lot of cool stuff going on.
Cool.
Yeah. And then Chris mentioned that we're going in and improving and changing things. I should note that like we're not altering the designs or anything. Just
right. Yeah, you're gonna get what you ordered.
Part separation. Part separation.
Yes.
For like the factory, just production things.
Yeah.
Or in some cases, things might be getting bonus items or enhancements. But all no design changes or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to add on to what Chris said. There wasn't a transforming armor function to begin with in the story. Like that was something that sort of happened like later in the process, because we realized, hey, we kind of have premium dinosaurs that cost, a good chunk of change,
Right.
And if we were to package in a fully articulated 18th scale independent toy, human action figure and an armor set, we're kind of breaking the bank for a lot of people. Why don't we package it separately? But by doing so, how do we add value to that armor on its own?
Yeah.
So that's where we came up with the idea, transforming function. If you buy Fire Clan armor, you now have a robot creature. You don't have to buy a human figure. You don't have to buy a dinosaur. You still got a toy that works on its own. And then same goes for the Tech Clan stuff. You have a vehicle, and then if you buy a dinosaur, well, now you have an armor set. So that was sort of like thought process involved with that. And then making sure each clan has its own unique, I don't want to call it gimmick, because we definitely design and sculpt, I think, with more, I don't know, like nuance and care than just to call it a gimmick, but like the function of each clan, we make sure to try and create something unique across the board, But,
building off that, speaking of the different clans, would you mind doing a quick breakdown of the different clans in that way, and sort of like, you've kind of established like this clan has the transforming, etc. But then also like because they each almost have like its own unique culture and design, right? It's almost like they each have a different art director for this clan that creates their own look of their tech. Could you share what the thinking is behind that? Like, how do you approach that and say like, oh, this is how they approach design, and this is how this clan approaches design?
Yeah. Day one, when I started, Dave sent me a giant Google Docs of all his headcanon lore for Cyberzoic. And it's like, all right, pick something from there and we're going to design it, or start doing some drawings from it. And it was giant. It was like my first piece of homework from him. And he kind of had an idea of influence and things for everything. But I came back to him and was like, can we create like a Pinterest board for each of these clans to help me out? Like, I think that would be super helpful. So this way I'm not wasting time working on stuff you're not vibing with, So we kind of just hit the nail on the head the first time and just go from there. So we did that. And once that was established, we did drawings based off of those things. And then I guess, Chris, you want to talk about each of the clans. I know you're excited about particularly one of them. But
oh, man, the Fire Clan or the Dragon Clan? Wait, what did you say? You cut out there for a second. So,
you talk about some of the differences or whatever with each of the clans, like the influences and look.
Awesome, perfect. So I'm going to start with the Tech Clan, because everybody knows the Tech Clan. And I've said this before, but when I first started, I always thought the Tech Clan was the savior of this world, right? Like they look very clean, they look awesome, they're very tech, and that's how all their designs are. They're Cyberzoic. They're Cyberzoic. They're very sci-fi, right? Very futuristic, but very clean lines, very organized, very orderly. And that goes with the clan. They are organized, they're orderly. You don't go outside the norm or something. You have repercussions, right? And that's how the armors are. Very clean lines, very smooth surfaces. It is to the point of what it is. And then you have the Fire Clan, and it's kind of like not so much a rebellion, but it's more of a abstract of just power, like what can bring about power, right? So that's what all their armors try to bring about, is just fierce monster mashing power. I love it because they have the gladiator fight things that you saw in the updates, and you can see them fighting the dinosaurs. And so you can take away from them very, very chaotic, aggressive stuff. Perfect example, the Pyrodactyl, the Razorhound. They're just super aggressive mechanical beasts, but they're very beautiful in structure. They fit in with the environment, and they don't take away from the planet, right? Then you also have the Dragon Clan, which is one that I'm really starting to love a lot, especially working on the Smilodon armor, the Saber Beast armor. And what's cool about that is they are kind of like, you can kind of think of like a neutralist in the world. Like they don't want to destroy the planet, they don't want to hurt the animals, but they also have this unique design where they're using futuristic techniques to build their armors and make them very powerful and unique, but they're also not hurting the creatures and they're not overpowering them, right? Perfect example, the Saber Beast armor sits on the Saber Beast. It doesn't control it. It doesn't hurt it. It doesn't do anything, but it makes it a comfortable ride and gives it protection versus the Fire Clan where the actual beasts or the actual armors control the dinosaurs to an extent and they come off and become their own crazy beasts. Tech Clan, the Utah Raptor, has no control once that armor's on it, right? That's how they control it. And then you also have the Desert Clan, which we haven't hit too much on the lore of, but they are, Ross was actually talking with me today on that a little bit, is they're more human, or not human, they're more earth sciences, right? So you're going to have more like steampunk, not so much steampunk, but you're gonna have like nuts and bolts welding, that type of stuff on the armor sets. And that's why you get the modular set where you can put the different parts on, because they're using older technologies, but it works, right? Because that's what they have at their disposal. So if you look at each clan, you can really see how they're built up with these ideologies behind them. And I think it's super easy to see in the the Tech Clan, because it's, I like to think of them as like kind of a religion, right? They're very structured, and anything outside of that is bad. So you can see they're white, they're clean, just bleached out. Everything else is white. That's all it is. And I love that because it shows their total totalitarian system. Then you have the Fire Clan where it's a mix of different colors, but it's a lot darker, showing off their power. Dragon Clan, very neutral. And then of course the Desert Clan is very beige, or not beige, but like browns, I guess you can say. I'm bad with colors, you guys, but yeah, hope that wasn't too much information.
No, that was fantastic.
Yeah,
and it
absolutely.
totally it speaks to the storytelling in even the looks that you're going for, right? Like that there's a lot going on behind it. That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's what's so cool about this, because I made the joke today. I was talking to Ross. I was like, I'm just gonna throw some bolts in there, and he goes, no, Chris, this is not how this clan looks. No, he didn't say it like that, but I like to make fun of him. But it's an example. It's a perfect example of when we're working on stuff, you know, because we're a team, but we're very close knit. So it's really fun. We can bounce ideas off each other, but we're also able to direct and figure things out. And so when we're working on stuff, it's really cool to see how we're able to bring out different aspects, especially for the clans, because each one, when we work on each project, it's a specific clan, easy enough to say.
Yeah.
So we don't want to get them mixed together. So anytime something comes up, we'll have to make changes, make sure it doesn't represent another clan. So it is really cool. And that's what's awesome about having Ross at my disposal, because I can just hit ideas off him. And then also David too, whenever I reach out to him, it's super cool. And we're super spoiled by this. I can just ask him a question. I get the whole spiel about why it is this way, what's going on, and future things coming out. So I like to kind of like to meander my ground in that way.
Nice.
It sounds like you guys have a lot of fun with this. It sounds like it's you know, it's a bunch of friends, you know, playing with toys in a sandbox, right? Like like almost literally, like you guys are coming up with these ideas together, just bouncing things off each other and being like, how cool would this be? And I can just imagine Chris in those conversations just like bouncing off the walls when you hear like, we're gonna do what? Like
yeah. And it's funny because it's like oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was
Sorry,
just gonna say, it's sort of crazy how well like we do work together, and how much like, you know, I reached out to him randomly, Chris reached out to him randomly. We both brought on at different points in time, but we all sort of just understood our roles and like the ideas, and we never really were trying to like push it in the wrong direction. Like we all just kind of collaborated in just the perfect way, you know. And it's been really awesome getting to work together and all this stuff. Like perfect example, the Pyrodactyl Chris is working on, Chris initially took it and he was like, all right, I'm going to do something crazy. And he made some changes and adjustments. And then, we kind of like worked with those changes. And one of them was like, he added this like crazy thruster detail onto the back of it, which wasn't in the original design. But there was also a saddle. And I was like, hey, Chris, what if we just combine those things? So we worked together to combine and integrate that thruster detail into the saddle. So that's, instead of two pieces, it's one. And it just worked together. It's really cool. But yeah, it's really fun that we all get along so well. And, but yeah.
And I think that's what's really important about this group. It's like kind of become this brotherhood, because everything we're doing, we love. And we want to make sure that what we're producing, you guys love as much as we do. And it's funny because, we want to create a great product. And that was one of the first things David said to me. He was, what can I give to people that gives more than his value, right? And first conversation I ever had with him about this, because he was talking to me about what he's doing. And it's so funny because now we're all working together and we all love this. Like, this is like not only like a way for us to work, but it's also a way for us to have this passion of something that's so cool. And anytime we get talking about, we get super excited about it, have a lot of fun with it. So we hope that everybody that gets one of these is like, oh man, this is super cool. Check this out. Look what it does. And because even us, like, you know, these are figures we've been working on, but I can't wait to get my hands on them. I can't wait to play with them. And it's so funny because I'll be sitting there looking at something, and perfect example of Smilodon armor. I would never have normally been into something like this, but after working on it, I'm just like, man, this is so cool. I can't wait to play with it. And so it's fun and it's interesting. And we hope we bring that to all of y'all whenever you guys get one of these figures in your hands that you are loving as much as we do.
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, they all look so cool, and it like I did a video a while ago about like toy lines that I would love to see come back, and Dino Riders was on my list, and it was sort of like, if I can't get Dino Riders, this is probably better, because this isn't just a rehash of something that we got, you know, with
not probably sort of better. It's better.
But well, it is, yeah. It just, you know, this is that, but evolved to a point where like the lore is better and the story is going to be better, and the dinosaurs and stuff are better, the armor's better, the figures are better, like all that kind of stuff. So
just to let you guys know, this is not a paid promotion. No.
Yeah, no, and I'm to be clear, I'm not just shilling and fan geeking out, but like no, the reason I say that, and a lot of this has to do with my collecting habits. Like I don't collect a lot of like my old nostalgic brands for a reason, and I think a lot of that is like I'm kind of excited by the new, and I'm excited about where the sort of state of the art has come.
Yes.
And frankly, like when you're doing figures based on a nostalgic brand, you have these real, you have rails, you have, you know, a road that you can go down, and you have a fan base who's ready to tell you you're doing it wrong. And so for you guys, like, and I was hesitant to even bring up the Dino Riders thing, but I do have some questions about that. But like, there's something to be said about like, we're creating this new thing. And if you have a love for that, you might have a love for this too. And it's no secret, like this guy and I like shill for AWOC hardcore, Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. And like, I love Thundercats, I love Planet of the Apes, absolutely. So those things are there and they resonate with me. But then, man, I love the story and I love what you're doing with it, and I love this whole other world. And I think that's a very similar thing that's happening for Cyberzoic. Whether that's I just love dinosaurs, I love Jurassic Park, I love, you know, sci-fi Transformers, or I love that thing Dino Riders. So so again, not just like blowing you guys up but there's a thought process. Like I'm actually genuinely excited about where the possibility of this thing, rather than, ooh, how well can they make me feel good about this thing that I remember? So I am kind of curious though, how do you balance those sort of like there's clear nostalgic nods, especially with some of the like the what do you call the exclusives that came out in the Kickstarter, to lines that are similar and sort of similar in concept on a basic level, dinosaurs with scientific sci-fi tech. How do you balance that with creating a new thing? And then you kind of answered, it sounds like you're really into the new, but how do you walk that line, I guess, knowing that there are people who have been saying repeatedly, yeah, this is Dino Riders for the 21st century. Like, is that something you guys run up against? Is it a creative block? Is it a good thing?
You going or me going?
I think, I know when there's plenty of design work and drawings and stuff that haven't been shown, you know, publicly, but we're always playing with the idea of going back and calling back to, you know, original Dino Riders design elements, and creating something entirely new. And it's always fun to do both. Like, you know, for the Smilodon, we obviously knew we wanted to do something brand new for the armor, but we could call back to it with the exclusive color scheme that is, you know, Dino Riders homage. But there's definitely design elements that so sort of small nods to Dino Riders, like the Utah Raptor, which is the Tech Clan larger Raptor that the armor set turns into like a jet vehicle. There's two layers to the helmet. There's a visor section that's removable, and like there's like a face harness, and that face harness is sort of similarly shaped to the T-Rex armor from Dino Riders. So there's sort of that connection there, and it's always fun to like connect that stuff. But for the most part, we're definitely aiming to do something brand new, because we're excited to do something like that, and we're not, attached to Dino Riders in any way officially. So I think it's important for us to,
of course,
make our mark uniquely instead of trying to bum off of somebody else's idea or IP.
Is you've done and by you I mean Creative Beast Studios. Creative Beast Studios has done like the T-Rex in sort of the Dinobots colorway, and the Triceratops I think is a dinosaur in a Dino Riders colorway. Dinobots, it's Dino Riders colorway.
Well, it's the monoclonius. I forget what the actual species is, but it was called monoclonius for the exclusive.
We're talking about this is the He-Man one, I think.
No, I think you're talking about the Dino Riders are mono, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But is that
the monoclonius
reaction to the market sort of asking for that, or is that did you guys always have that intention? You have the dinosaur, so is it like, well, people keep asking, when are we going to make one that's this color? Or was it sort of like, okay, we're going to make a T-Rex, and when we do, we're going to make it, a Dino Riders sort of homage?
I know, well, for the T-Rex specifically, the colors of that are based on the box art. And in Dino Riders, the T-Rex never was the color of the box art.
It was never that color,
Dull. Yeah, so that was like sort of Dino Riders finally seeing, properly colored T-Rex. Just kind of putting that out into the universe because it was never properly done. I don't know. I wasn't around for the Ceratopsian Kickstarter, so I don't know the details on that monoclonius. But I mean, Dave is a ginormous fan of Dino Riders. He has a lot of them, not all of them.
All of them.
No, he doesn't have a couple of the super rare ones, but they're kind of up there in price. I think there's stuff that was actually never ended up getting released. Like there's only a couple factory samples or something like that. That are ridiculous in price. But yeah, Dave's huge fan of Dino Riders, and he's really involved in all those decisions. But
Cool. I think it's cool. I mean, the Kickstarter exclusive Dino Riders homage Smilodon is cool, but I mean, I as much as I wanted Dino Riders to come back, I'm kind of happy that it didn't, and kind of happy that Cyberzoic is here in its place. I actually passed on that one and got the normal Dragon Clan Smilodon, because I think it's cool to have something that's new. There's a nod there, obviously, but to get something fresh and new and different, like Justin said in the comments, new IP is fun, and indie toys are sort of way more fun. I was saying on a video last weekend, maybe it was, that what I realized is, as a kid, I was always like, when you'd go to the toy store and there was like a new line, it was always exciting to like pick up a new figure. When I was a kid, I wasn't like, nah, man, I'm only gonna stick with G.I. Joe. Like I know I like G.I. Joe, so that's all I want, and that's all I want to buy. So to me, it's kind of like coming to the realization that like what was more exciting for me as a kid is now as a collector what I'm kind of more excited by is new stuff, new lines, new takes on things, even if it's not entirely new or whatever. What in the Cyberzoic line has been your favorite kind of thing, I guess? And we'll think of them as sets, right? Like which dino with armor and figure, and could you tell us a little bit about why? And which clan are you sort of most sort of aligned with, maybe, in terms of your sort of interest in them?
Ross, you going first?
You go first. Tell us, Chris.
Okay. So I have so many that I love. The Carnotaurus, oh my gosh, man. After seeing its armor set with Diebuck, that's why I have the purple shirt, by the way. It's the only purple Cyberzoic shirt you'll ever see. It's mine. I'm blown away by it. So Dave painted it up, and Dave is really cool. My favorite color is purple. And he's like, oh, I got some awesome ideas. And so he did Diebuck was always going to have this purple armor set, but it blew my mind to see Diebuck with the Carnotaurus, and it looks sick. Ross did the concepts for the Carnotaurus too, and it's funny because it has this mohawk thing. I love mohawks, anything on mohawks, with a mohawk or fins, and it's just this crazy fin thing on his head. And so I actually got to get the prototype ready and send it over to Dave, and I was looking at the parts, and it is the coolest thing ever. It doesn't transform, but it's so unique. It's so hardcore in its style. Then you have Diebuck, who's this dragon humanoid, and he is a monster. So it's really cool to see these things in person, because originally my favorite one, I would have to say, was the Pyrodactyl with the Dilophosaurus, just because, you know, I got to work on it, but also because I thought it was so cool. I love dragons. Dragons are my favorite thing. So, man, I'm going to get a long window on this. Get ready, you guys. So I love that one. Now, when it comes to like my favorite creature, I would have to say it's going to be the Arctic dragon, but I'm really pushing for the forest dragon, the green one now. Is that called the forest dragon, Ross? Is that what we're calling it?
Forest dragon, lizard dragon. It's been called a couple different things, but
we'll call it the green dragon lizard forest, man. And they're insane. Like, these things are so cool, and it's fun because, you know, I got to see the renders of it. I got to like look at them and figure out things, and then do the turntable. So I got to get really personal with these models, and it's really hard for me to say which one's my favorite. But the dragon is the Arctic dragon is so cool. I actually was able to get the last statue of the Arctic dragon that Dave originally did before he had Cyberzoic, and I'm in the process of painting it. But it is such a cool, I've never seen a dragon like this. I'm all for like dragons with the faces, like you can see behind me. I've done a bunch of dragons, but seeing this new development, it blew my mind. And so Dave's working with me to be able to come up with a concept for a dragon right now. And he's like, he told me, he goes, no teeth, no horns, show me what you can do. And it turned into this whole world of new monsters I've never created before. And it's been really
awesome.
Cool. But yeah, so it's really fun, but it's interesting to see. So love the Arctic dragon. I have to say the beast Arctic dragon, by far my favorite. By the way, its tail got a new piece of articulation in it. So if you haven't seen that, go and check it out on our socials. And then on top of that, so it's going to be the Carnotaurus armor, the Arctic dragon, Diebuck's my favorite humanoid figure, or I guess human figure. But then I still love the Pyrodactyl. So you asked me for one favorite. I got 20 favorites. I'm gonna go through the whole line. And the reason why the Pyrodactyl I love so much, I already thought it was cool. And this is interesting. Like we've talked about this a few times, how we can bounce ideas off each other and there's no repercussions. Like, we're friends. Like, this is our passion. We're gonna make these as best we can. And like I love the silver design of the Pyrodactyl, and I sent a render of a silver Pyrodactyl to David, and so he started playing with the silver color. And Ross said, I don't really like he didn't say I don't really like the color. He just said I don't feel good about this color. And it's funny because he sat on it for a few days, thought about it, and he finally reached out to David, was like, hey, we got to do something with this. And so David did, and you guys got to see it at Legion Con. And then you also get to see it in the Kickstarter updates. The new paint scheme for it is immaculate. It's so cool. It's very hardcore. And then it has this tiny hint of blue on the thruster. And the Dilophosaurus actually has blue in its mouth. And so I think of it as Otachi from Pacific Rim. It's kind of how I look at it now, with this really cool blue color. And it just makes the whole thing flow. And that would have never happened if Ross wouldn't have said anything, right? So it's just the coolest things just come together. It's almost like a game of Tetris, and it's insane how well these things gonna go. So I guess my favorite one I'd have to say is the Pyrodactyl. Yeah. So yeah, I love all of them.
I love that you worked in the dragons there. How about you, Russ?
Yeah, I throughout the whole process of the Kickstarter campaign, my favorite was constantly changing. Because like a new reveal would happen, and we only get to see bits and pieces of it as we work on it. So Dave is kind of like the final step, and once he posts images, like, it's a reveal for us, as much as it is for everybody else. And it's always exciting for that. So like every time something new popped up, I was like, oh my gosh, that's my favorite. But I have definitely now settled down to have picked the Dryptosaurus armor set. That one is very special to me because it doesn't transform, doesn't have a crazy function, but it was the very first armor that I had designed for the entire Cyberzoic series. And it was just very early on, still kind of playing with it, didn't really understand the gravity of what I was doing and what it would become. Just did a little drawing, and then DeGeorge sculpted the heck out of it. Castelline, and I got the chance to paint it with the prototype, and then seeing it armored up on this red-headed Dryptosaurus. It just It's awesome. It's got this giant face blade. It's just super metal, and that's gotta be my favorite.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I kind of said my favorite earlier was the dragon. That's what I sort of landed on. That was the thing that actually caught my attention really early on with this line. So it was great to hear you address like this idea of trying to create something new, because that's what I like about it. Like it's got like the bird kind of beak thing. The wings are very different, almost like they're not like wings, right? I mean, they are, but they're something else going on there, whether it's like insect like or what. But still cool, because there's all this, again, tying back to the science that David seems to be really into, just the notion that like they're not lizards, or dinosaurs aren't lizards, they're avian, right? This whole, and so we're looking at the beak. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then quick swerve to, what'd you call it? The lizard dragon or the forest dragon. So again, going back to the lizard thing. And I just think there's actually really cool kind of connections there. And I love, and the colors are just amazing, because it was like a very unique piece that I'm excited to have on my collection. But anyway, that just wanted to say that, because I think it's gorgeous and I'm excited for it.
Thank you. Yeah.
I wanted to ask the question because I kind of get the feeling that there isn't, like, you guys are like me. It's hard to pick, because it's sort of like they're all good. And if you pick one, then you're like, but this one's really good too.
Right.
Yep.
So maybe that's my favorite. And then you're like, this one over here does this. And so I need that one too.
Yeah, it's horrible.
There isn't a bad one in the bunch, which kind of sucks, because it would make it a lot easier on my wallet if I was like, well, I only want this one, and I'll be fine with just the one.
And that's what Ross and I have problems with too, because we backed the Kickstarter as well, because we were like, we want this, we got to get it. So it's funny, because like I said, we don't only want to produce these things, we want these things. So we're just as excited as you guys are, if not more excited. So it is a lot of fun, especially to hear that coming from you guys, because you guys are fans. So it just pumps us up even more, because that's what we want. We want to make something so cool that, I mean, of course we're going to want it, we're making it, but other people get as excited as we are about it.
So you're like you said, you're also collectors and fans while you're creating this stuff. How do you then manage, like, both Adam and I talk about space danger and like the size of stuff, as well as like the budget stuff.
Yes.
So how does that all work in the conversations where you're like, okay, we have the giant dragon, let's do another giant dragon and another giant. How do you balance? Is that a consideration in the line in terms of different sizes of things and variety?
And also, how many dragons will there be?
That's classified.
We can make.
Yeah. Because like we're all fans of dragons, right? But going back to the first question, I gotta think in my head. Oh, sizing, right? Because that is a problem. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen the T-Rex. It's massive. Let me go grab him really quick. Ross, if you want to talk about the sizing thing.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we were talking about the forest dragon, lizard dragon. That particular dragon was inspired by one of the lizards. I forget the actual species name, but they have like arm flaps and they glide. So we were thinking about things scientifically, how it would fly. Well, the size of those wings for that dragon were originally like double the size. And we realized like we can't box, like we're probably not gonna be able to make molds of that, produce it. We can't box that, we can't ship that, so we had to reduce the wing size. But like here, Chris is going through the giant T-Rex. Things like
I break this off every time. We're just gonna hide this. Yeah, so it's huge.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I'm just playing over here now. Don't worry about me. But that's the thing. So I don't know what he said when I was gone, but we had that conversation. So we got to go to New Jersey and New York with David during the Legion Con and got to go do some fun things. But we're talking about just that. We were talking about the long neck sauropods and how we could produce something so big, and we talked about this in our live stream too. How do we get it to where we even store the boxes for these things? Because you got to think of how big it is, even with the head disconnect or the neck disconnected, just the body of the tail disconnected, you're going to have a 2-3 foot box. And the storage on that is going to be insane. So it is very realistic. The sizing and all that is very realistic. But you can see we are going to do whatever we can to make really cool figures as big as we can. And you get these cool 1/18 scale dinosaurs. They look great. I don't know how well you can see the detail on these things, but I mean, they go hard, and they're so fun to play with. I've been playing with these things so much. And then you have these guys. I actually knocked the horn off just now. I'll go back and get it. But you can see, and that's what's so cool about them. You have these really cool dinosaurs that are just massive, but they're super articulated too, and it's so fun to play with.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going crazy. Sorry, guys. I had to show off my toy collection.
No, it was great.
No,
you were saying, Ross, about the wings. Sorry, because I didn't want to lose it, but it's kind of similar to what Chris was saying about box size. But what was going on with the wings? They were originally much larger, and then
yeah, because we designed everything like to keep in mind, evolution and like what exists in the real world, and we don't really design by the rule of cool when it comes to the dragons.
Yeah,
because we want them to feel like they exist in the same world as the dinosaurs. So everything's like very scientific based. We're looking at anatomy and studying existing animals on the planet and imagine how they might evolve. So that made the wings ginormous. And once we got the 3D prints of those, we were like, okay, we got to scale this back. So they were scaled back. And there's some images of that on our socials from about 6-8 months ago.
I remember that.
The initial prototype. But yeah, we had to scale those wings back, but they're still ginormous, and
they're still huge. Yeah, I mean that's you look at the physics of how it would fly, and you're like, okay, physics doesn't necessarily need to be involved when we have to put it in a box and ship it to somebody. So I think that's probably a very smart move on your part to not make it so big that it's impossible to actually get anywhere.
Yep.
The Cyberzoic one, we got what was it, 11 beasts, I think, 10 or 11, including the dragons.
Let me see. I actually have it up because I was going to try to share stuff with you, but then I got lazy.
Is that more or less gonna be sort of the pattern going forward? Are we gonna see Cyberzoic 2 be somewhere in that range, and Cyberzoic 3 and 4 and 30 all be sort of around that range? Will there be waves? I think it's safe to say.
I think it's safe to say that there will be around that number of beasts in each of them, because we definitely, I mean, if anything, we want to do more. We just have to keep in mind the budgets of our fans, and our limitations in production and management, because there's only so much that we can manage and do to make sure that we're delivering the best product. But I'd say it's definitely safe to say within that range we can expect in the next coming Cyberzoics. We definitely would love to include single releases in between Kickstarters, and small waves of figures in between. It just really all has to do with budget and sales at the time and how well we're doing, because every project funds the next, so it's all kind of up in the air. We have ideas for so many different figures. I mean, there's no animal we don't want to make, so it's just a matter of time, budget, and all those sort of things.
Now, not sort of asking for any spoilers or anything like that, but we've got a bunch of dinos already. Which dinosaur would you guys most like to see make it into Cyberzoic?
Spinosaurus.
Isn't already.
I know Chris's answer.
Spinosaurus for sure, hands down.
Yeah.
For me,
it's that mohawk thing, huh?
Dude, it's the fins, bro.
For me, it's actually a Cenozoic beast, and I desperately want a Brontops, which is the prehistoric rhino that has sort of like that forked Y horn. I'm a bit rhino obsessed, and I absolutely love the Brontops species and would love to see that in the line, because I think there's a lot of fun you could do with that horn. Whether you could, I don't know if it would be too silly to create like some type of catapult weaponry out of that horn, or armor.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Slingshot.
But but definitely Brontops.
That'd be cool, man. I mean, I'm just excited for anything like that's. As somebody that doesn't know dinosaurs, and when I'm like, oh, a Eutyrannus, I have no idea what that is, but I need that blue feathered dino with that really dope armor. Like, I'm having to like figure out what these species are, and like they're scientifically accurate. So I'm like, okay, well that's I guess it's a real thing. I don't even know.
It's so crazy you bring that up too, because I still can't pronounce half of their names. I'll be over there and I'll just start jibber jabbering, just say as fast like and then I just move on, because if I try to say the name,
what did he say?
That's what I said. Yeah, it's that dinosaur. And it's so funny. So every now and then you'll hear me say something and I'll just keep flowing with my sentence, because I know if I stop, they're gonna ask me, what did you say? And I don't have time for that.
Yeah, exactly. Just power through.
Oh man, but yeah, that's the crazy part. So just working on this, I've learned about so many species, the tyrannosaur species, tyrannosaur, that's right, series. I have learned so many scientific names for these guys, and it's insane to see how many there are. Because I knew about Tyrannosaurus Rex, right? I didn't know about the Eutyrannus. I didn't know about the Dryptosaurus. I mean, Carnotaurus, yeah, but it's crazy. So working on this, it's just like, I think all of our fans and you guys as well, there's dinosaur species names out here I can't even pronounce, but I'm so happy that we did them, because I learned about new dinosaurs and they're cool looking to play with. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, Ross, you said it's not, you're not working off the like rule of cool, but I mean, these things are pretty cool. Like you're kind of like resetting that boundary a little bit in some respect, because I think it's like, people are researching dinosaur species to sort of inform themselves. I'm probably not the only one. I mean, at least I'm doing that, but people are sort of looking at dinosaur species differently, because they're like, which ones would make cool action figures? Now, again, to the point of Cyberzoic 2, there's been some sort of suggestion that we're gonna get deeper into the lore. We've seen tech and fire be kind of featured prominently in Cyberzoic 1. Are they kind of the two main guys for Cyberzoic 2 still, or will we see a shift to different clans for Cyberzoic 2? It's 2 years away, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It's a trap.
Yeah. we're still figuring things out, because like, if you take like Cyberzoic 1, for instance, we were still rearranging that lineup up until really like a day or two before, because we were constantly like working crazy on sculpts and designs, and like the list was like double the size to start with, and it was whittled down and things were shifted around. So a lot could change from now to Cyberzoic 2. But I know we're definitely going to explore more of the Desert Clan.
Good. That's all I needed to know. That was what I wanted to know.
And then another with the we only had single release for the Dragon Clan, so it's definitely we're going to be exploring those two clans more.
Mammoth confirmed.
And obviously more modern clan tech. Yeah. And then it'll be super exciting when we get to Water Clan, but.
Yeah, I like that David's being very sort of cryptic about it and like not really sharing anything. But like, I like that, as much as we're all going to try to speculate, like, who are they? What are they? What are they? What are they doing? I like that he's just, keeping that close to the chest, and like, there's nothing, right? There's the Ronin, and that's it. And he's not even in that clan anymore. He's just from that clan. So I'm fascinated by that, and I love that. Ross, again, you mentioned that David has this Cyberzoic Bible that he's working from now. That's an absolute brick of information, and I can't wait for more. And I'm glad that we're gonna get more, and I look forward to that. Do you guys want to jump into a few questions from the chat?
Yeah,
and then we'll wrap it up here. Or Brick, have you got any other questions that you wanted to sort of throw in before?
Well, just I wanted to bounce off, because I know that we have been digging deep into the lore, especially this guy. Kind of, you mentioned like Water Clan. For the folks who are watching and are kind of new to the line, because things are in different places, where would you suggest they go to get as geeky as Adam about it?
I would honestly say I would check out the updates on the Kickstarter, not only because you can see what's going on with the figures, but that's, I think, the biggest plethora of not knowledge, but of lore you can find, because David really did want to put it out there what each thing was and actually get you guys really excited for it. But if you go to the Instagram as well, you'll see a lot of stuff with posts talking about what things are. So you'd have to kind of dig through there. But we have the Facebook page. We have the website too, which is creative-beast.com. I cannot speak. And if you go and click on Cyberzoic, you can see a lot of concept art, a lot of other things there that are really cool. And I think that's probably your best bet. But if you want to get into the nitty gritty text, I would definitely check out the updates on the Kickstarter, because you can get really dark into there, or deep into there.
Cool. Just didn't want anyone to
And I
feel
was gonna
left
say,
out, so they know where to go get the geeky.
Yeah,
and I'll put all those
and
links in the description below. If you're watching this on replay, I'll add them after the stream. Ross?
And a tip to navigating the socials for Cyberzoic lore, like if you ever see just a illustrated image of the Cyberzoic world, you just click on that, and there's always guaranteed to be lore attached to that post. So those would be little treasure coves of information.
There's a little nugget in each of them, and sometimes,
and we're obviously building towards our comic book release that we plan on doing alongside the launch of Wave 1. So that'll be, the biggest chunk of lore.
That's too long of a wait. Like Brick mentioned, like he and I do deep dive videos on AWOC comic books, so I fully anticipate we're probably going to end up doing that at least once for Cyberzoic. All right, questions from the chat. Justin asked, what happened to the 112 figures for Cyberzoic? Is that still sort of in the ether somewhere? Is that just further down the line? It just didn't work for the Kickstarter, right? Is that?
You want me to hit it, Ross?
We definitely we saw like a lot of the interest and love in the 112th line, and it's something we definitely want to pursue. And we had ideas of including it in the Kickstarter, but at a certain point, we needed to focus on the main objective of the Kickstarter and the main figure, so that we're not sacrificing quality or attention over what we promise. So 1/12 is something we definitely want to pursue and plan on coming back to. But yeah, I mean, and there's perfect opportunity. Like for example, the Smilodon in Cyberzoic, that is 1/12. We scaled it up in Cyberzoic universe so that it is the size for a mount, and then we'll have the proper 1/18th version come out with Cenozoic. That's sort of our first 1/12 figure. And there's other dinosaurs that are right for 1/12 sizing, like the Deinonychus. 1/18th is like this big. It's very manageable at 1/12. So there's a lot of smaller dinosaurs that we can scale up, and then the human figures, obviously. Everyone loves 6-inch, and we're all fans of it too. So yeah. Well,
it does seem to be sort of the prevailing scale in action figures at the moment. Although there's a pretty good push, from that 4-inch scale. So, actually, to that point, I wanted to ask this: Is there a this is a loaded personal question, but somebody was mentioning Joy Toys in the chat as well. I forget who it was. Do you have sort of a figure line currently in the 1/18th scale that you're using as sort of your 1/18th reference scale? And is it Joy Toy? And if not, can you switch to that so that I can buy like the Dio stuff to use for Cyberzoic?
I think some of our main references have been Joy Toy and Vintage Collection, Star Wars Vintage Collection. And then there are some comparisons in some of the gallery images on the site. Both. So they definitely work together. And I think also one thing that I think we pride ourselves on is all of our stuff is in scale with one another in the line. Some lines, it's the same company, same figures, but one figure is out of scale with another. I've worked very, very hard in going in and making sure everyone's correctly proportioned in their height. Hands are compatible, so that's definitely a guarantee of our line. But yeah, I mean, and if you go to the Kickstarter page, the video at the top, there's a sneak peek of that lineup, and I believe there are some sizes listed there. So you can see that.
I was going to say too, that's another thing that Ross actually took a lot of effort and work into, is making sure that these weapons too are compatible. So our port system throughout our line is compatible with each other. So if you have weapons from one thing, you can put it on another. But not only that, but they also work with other figure line ports, so you can put them on there. So there's a lot of compatibility with building out your weaponization of these dinosaurs. So perfect example, the Deinonychus. We have that cool pack that with all the ports on it, you can load it up with a bunch of different weapons that are from different lines. So that's another thing that's really cool that Ross actually helped put together. And not only that, this is where it gets crazier. For people who didn't make out the Legion Con, the weapons on the Deinonychus actually have a slide and port system for a handle trigger. So you can take all the guns that are on the Deinonychus back, slide in the hand trigger, and now it's a weapon that the character can hold. So the troopers, the desert troopers, can hold, and it's sweet. It's awesome, and it works so easily.
Yeah, to call back to what you guys mentioned before, like how you're making little tweaks and changes and things like that. At Legion's Con, Ross, you showed me that the peg isn't just a round peg. You're actually sculpting the peg to make it look like it's part of the design, not just sort of an add-on thing for the sake of porting it in.
Yeah, because
super
initially.
Cool.
Yeah, initially during the Kickstarter, when we had come up with the idea of making the weapons human compatible, I had done so with the sliding grip system and sent files over to Dave, and he was like, it kind of have this big ugly peg on here. Can we do something with that? And I was like, oh yeah, I should. So we turned it into like a canister design that still fits the same 5mm port. So it just, you get the double functionality. So when you move it, it doesn't look like this big ugly cylinder attached to it. There's not like a canister detail.
Nice.
Justin also asked for the pterodactyl. Now, I'm not exactly sure what he's referencing, whether that's the pyrodactyl, whether that's whatever. But I think this goes for like any of the flying creatures. Would it be possible to make it so that they are able to be hung from the ceiling rather than necessarily be on a flight stand or something?
So we were working on the flight stand for it, so you could do that. But I think it would be super easy to just make it so that it has an attachment, or even, I don't know, we could actually talk to Dave about that, because that's pretty cool, because I like to do that with some of my SH figure arts of dragons and have them in my studio. So yeah, that's actually a great question. That's something that would be really cool to have, like a little gimmick, maybe just something that we have on the side that you can purchase from our website as an add-on to any products you guys buy, because that would give it a lot more, not posability, but that scenery set up for your studio, not only or your room, because you got shelves. When you see behind Adam, he's got a shelf. There's no room for a flying pterodactyl monster creature. We got to hang it from the ceiling. So yeah, that's definitely an option. That's what's so cool about this, is we're just like you guys, and that's a cool idea. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, well, it is a cool idea. Yeah, I agree. House Hendo asked, I noticed the artwork shows sauropods being utilized at least by one faction. The Tech Clan at least has them. 2 different sauropods, I think. Will they make it into the line eventually? Well, Ross, you mentioned that sauropods are a funny one because they're just so big. So it's not, if it doesn't make it, it's probably more a function of like, it's just too big. Or
there are definitely smaller. There's definitely smaller species of sauropod that we are interested. Like I said before, we want to do everything. So we have we have a couple different sizes going on in the line with Beast of Mesozoic and Cyberzoic. We started out doing 1/6 raptors. We've recently scaled those raptors down to 1/18, which is our main line. And then we have the 1/12 Smilodon, and we'll have the 1/18 Smilodon. But we have also did the 1/35 T-Rex and 1/35 Triceratops, which doubles as like a sub-adult or a younger Triceratops. So we've kind of laid the seeds of doing dinosaurs in various scales. And for 1/35 particularly, that's one that we could manage sauropods in. And with Cyberzoic, it's all sci-fi based. They're bringing back these dinosaurs from DNA from Earth. So in story, they could make sauropods smaller, better for warfare use. But yeah, I mean, we definitely want to do sauropods. We're not sure how they're going to integrate just yet. And who knows, Cyberzoic could blow up and we could afford to do a 1/18 scale sauropod, So we'll just have to see.
Right.
Last question, and then we will wrap it up. And I think this is a bit of a just a hopeful sort of type question. Wesley K says, I love he's talking about the dragons. I love the big ones, and I'm getting both, but I would love a few small ones too. Is there without sort of telling us what you're working on or whatever? Will all the dragons be that size, or I'll add this to the question: is the potential to have the same way that there's sub-adults in the dinosaurs in the line in Mesozoic, could we see sub-adult dragons to allow people to get dragons but still fit on a shelf?
Oh yeah. So there's Ross, stop me. Just scream at me if I start talking too much. There's actually supposed to be a third dragon, but like we said, we had so much going on for this Kickstarter, we had to dial it back a bit. Doesn't mean it's not going to be out there. It will be out there, but it was a smaller dragon that would have fit into the series of the first wave. So yes, there are going to be other dragons at different scales. These ones just have to be large dragons. We wanted to do that because this was the first wave of Cyberzoic. So we want to bring these just enormous creatures to life, right? Because it would come out with this big bang and get you guys sucked into the universe, which obviously worked on one of you two. No. So we definitely have a bunch of things in store for you guys. Wave 2 and 3, Cyberzoic 2 and Cyberzoic 3, not Wave 2 and 3. A lot of cool stuff in development. And like we were talking about before, we haven't even talked about the Water Clan, and we're going to divulge too many details on that, but there is a whole universe for this IP that we haven't even got into yet.
Yeah.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah, that's
good stuff, man. Well done.
We mentioned Dino Riders a little bit, but like the sauropods, seeing the concept art with the sauropods in the Tech Clan as like human, like a bus, right? It made me think of Dinotopia, which I absolutely loved as a kid, and still love. After I sort of stumbled upon Cyberzoic, thanks to Brick, I went back and was like looking at Dinotopia and looking at this thing. I went back and like looked at Dinotopia, looked at Dino Riders, looked at all that kind of dino related stuff. It just happened that my wife and sister-in-law and I were going through all the Jurassic Park movies at the same time too. So it was like,
you're all in.
It was serendipitous. Like all these things were happening all at the same time, and I was like, "Well, I guess I'm buying 1/18 scale dinosaurs with lasers on their backs." Yeah.
Adam, have you heard of Cyberzoic?
Oh, what does that have to do with the things that I'm looking into right now? Yeah, it just worked out very, very well. Yeah, I mean, I would love sauropods. I don't have space for like a dozen of them, but like, yeah, one. And Star mentions here. Sauropod as like a troop transport or like a ranged weapons support. I think that'd be so cool. Like, yeah, just a big heavy sort of tank of a dino would be a really, really cool addition.
Oh yeah.
But there's no bad additions, right? Like there's not a dinosaur that probably you'd be like, nah, that one wouldn't work. Like we couldn't think of a way to incorporate that one. So I think. All right. We're at about an hour and 30 minutes. That's usually where we try to wrap it up. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to add before we wrap, or you got any nuggets for us you want to drop any hints or anything that people can just nerd out about? Or
you guys want to know about the Ronin? No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
No, just, like I said, we're constantly updating the Facebook page, Instagram, and the website, especially the Kickstarter still has updates coming out. The backer kit is out for the Kickstarter. So if you guys haven't, go ahead and check that out. February 2nd, you can start doing the pre-orders for everything. Again, it's you can go to cyberzoic.toys to go to the Kickstarter, or you can go to creative-beast.com and click on the top banner, and it'll take you to this whole line of everything coming out and the waves. But again, February 2nd, you guys can pre-order everything. But yeah, we're just super excited about this. We're grateful for this opportunity to talk to you guys about it. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh man, I've been excited to talk to you guys for like the last 2 months. Brick and I have been sort of talking about, what we wanted to ask and what we wanted to talk about, and like all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're here for it, and can't wait to get them in hand. Can't wait to get more news. Can't wait to have you guys back on when we get them in hand. But yeah, it's been a blast. Brick, anything else you want to add?
We'll hear from Ross too. I think he was about to, but before that, you
Ross,
mentioned YouTube. I want to make sure that you were able to remind people about that. Something coming up on YouTube, you said?
Yeah. I was gonna say, this next week, Chris is launching our brand new YouTube series called Creative Beast Previews, and it'll basically be the where Chris will go through and unbox, show off articulation, sculpt, size comparisons of all brand new releases.
Nice.
So Chris will be getting the first factory samples and unboxing and revealing those, so you can sort of get that in hand review and look for all our brand new releases. And that'll be launching next week. And with the incoming Wave 3 Tyrannosaurs, that'll be first look at those out of box. But yeah, I mean, this has been an absolute blast. I mean, thanks for having us on.
Awesome, man. That's great. And Wednesdays, is that going to be you said Wednesdays, right? Is that going to be a regular thing that people can count on, or the plan?
Yeah, so that's the plan as of now. Again, with these things, you never know exactly how the schedule is going to go.
Sure.
We wanted to have it out last Wednesday, and it just didn't happen. We started figuring out and toying with ideas, and it made it a lot better, which we're always for making things better. So we will have it out this Wednesday, and we're going to try to have one out every 2 weeks, depending on how many figures we have. Also, if we've gone through all the figures at some point, that may happen if we do one every 2 weeks. But we'll keep we'll continuously come out with new stuff for you guys to see. And we're even thinking about doing it to where we talk about the lore too. So a lot of cool stuff in the works. Yeah.
I can't wait for more. Which is not a slight against what you've already released and what we already have. It's just I'm all in on this now, and I'm really excited for it. So. I will post the links to the Facebook page, the website, the Cyberzoic concept art page, which to me, like, if you do half the stuff on there, that you haven't yet, I will be very, very excited, because there's some really, really cool stuff on there as well. Can't wait to hear more from you guys. Again, been an absolute pleasure. And like I said, hopefully we will be able to get you on again when this stuff starts landing. Because I'm very, very excited to get this stuff in hand. As I said, I got to get a couple more dinos just to get, ready. Maybe some Joy Toy stuff. I just wish I could get your stuff sooner. Yeah, Rick's got his.
I was going to say, in the meantime, you can go buy some Beasts of the Mesozoic.
Exactly. The Beasts of the Mesozoic stuff. There's some pre-orders up that are already discounted a little bit. You guys have done some sales on the website there as well. There's some good stuff. There's some good deals. Shipping's pretty reasonable for like how big and heavy this stuff is too. Yeah. So I was actually shocked as somebody in Canada that I wasn't going to absolutely get annihilated by the shipping charge. So thank you for that. I know it's like you guys specifically. But anyway, yeah, I got to get my my pre-order. I got my pre-order in for my eCollectibles and my what's the other, the Utah Raptor? No,
Utah Raptor.
The Utah Raptor. Yeah, I bought extra armor sets in the backer kit. I'm gonna get those dinos ahead of time, and then when the armor shows up, then I'll already be halfway there. So
nice.
Very, very excited about all that stuff.
Nice.
But anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you everybody in the chat. Thank you to anybody watching on the replay. Can't wait to nerd out about what we've chatted about behind the scenes. Brick and I are probably gonna keep talking about this stuff.
Well, we will, but then I've got something going on I forgot to mention in about 45 minutes on the Brick Something channel, right? We've got the news with the Collecting Brothers. So we're gonna talk about all sorts of other nerdy stuff and things that we can spend our money on. So check that out too.
Exactly. Thanks everybody.
Bye guys.
And we